Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. Let's start off with none other than Canelo Alvarez, the newly crowned undisputed super middleweight champion of the world, having dispatched of Caleb Sweethand's plant inside 11 rounds. He has set his sights on a new challenge, and that is ILUNGA MAKABU, the WBC Cruiserweight champion and younger brother of the heavyweight Martin Bakole. Canelo Alvarez is obviously looking at Makabu and thinking to himself, you know, he's only 6 foot. There isn't that much of a discrepancy in height. I know Canelo Alvarez is officially billed as 5'9". I don't actually think he is 5'9". I think he's closer to 5'7", to be honest with you. Floyd Mayweather is not 5'9", and he seemed to be at least as tall as Canelo Alvarez. Nonetheless, he hasn't had a problem with fighting guys as tall or taller than Makabu. He's been in there with Kovalev. He's been in there with Callum Smith. So he'll be looking at this and he'll be thinking, okay, what does Makabu actually bring that is going to cause me these serious problems? Well, we know that Makabu is a very heavy-handed guy. 25 of his 28 wins have been by knockout. He has also been beaten on a couple of occasions, and we know that he got stopped against Tony Bellew inside 3 rounds, and his first ever defeat was his first ever fight, actually. It was in the first round. I believe it was after 29 seconds. Now, I know you can't really look too much into that, going back to 2008. But the point is, he has been rocked, he has been hurt, he has been down, he has been out. So Canelo Alvarez might be looking at this and thinking, look, this guy, one of the things he definitely has a problem with is his footwork. When he fought, for instance, Alexei Papin, you could see that when he was being made to rotate and turn, it does, he is a little bit of a plodder. He brings his feet close together. He shuffles his feet. He's not particularly comfortable at changing angles in terms of rotating to get himself back into his stance. So Canelo Alvarez might be looking at this and thinking, look, I might be able to really get this guy turning. You know, Canelo's footwork has improved in recent years. Yes, he's had some issue with his footwork against smaller, more mobile fighters. But against a bigger, more cumbersome man, he's not going to have that same issue. So if he can look at Makabu and he can think to himself, look, there might be something that I can exploit here and go and get myself a cruiserweight title and make history, you know, establish myself as more of a Hall of Fame or more of a legend. You know, people will be saying, oh, he went from welterweight all the way up until cruiserweight and won world titles. Well, listen, it would be an unbelievable achievement. Say what you want. Yes, I believe that he is not the strongest of world champions, just like Kovalev wasn't. But nonetheless, it would, at the point that he fought him, nonetheless, it would still be an incredible achievement. However, there is somewhat of an asterisk that you have to put alongside the narrative of the way this is being portrayed. And the reason this is important is not about props or status, but rather what we as fans demand from fighters, and perhaps the question of who Canelo Alvarez should be fighting and when he should be fighting them, if he is seeking to make history like he's claiming to be his aim. Long-time subscribers might remember that I had that disagreement with BJ Flores, the former fighter who's now training Jake Paul, or a co-trainer of Jake Paul, whatever he is right there. But the point is, he was arguing that from 154 all the way up until 175 pounds, Canelo Alvarez had been dominant in the sport. He dominated all those divisions. This is just not true. Okay, you cannot say he dominated the light heavyweight division when Kovalev, who was way past his best, was in many people's eyes ahead at the time of the stoppage, and he got caught with a big shot. Yes, great stoppage, and it's a great win. You can't take that away from him, but it wasn't Kovalev, was it? Let's be honest, it wasn't a prime Kovalev. A prime Kovalev was a supreme light heavyweight. He wasn't the same when he fought Canelo Alvarez. Now, we also saw in those lighter weight categories, Floyd Mayweather won a very lopsided victory against Canelo Alvarez. We also saw controversy in the Erislandy-Lara fight, a fight that I personally felt Lara won 7 rounds to 5. At middleweight, you have the controversial fights against Gennady Golovkin. Even the second fight, which the narrative has now become that, oh yeah, I think Canelo won that second fight. If you look at the 59 polled ringside observers, former fighters, journalists, pundits, only 2 had Canelo Alvarez winning the fight. Personally, I thought it was very close through 8 rounds, and then Golovkin pulled away. I thought there was only 1 winner in that second fight. The point is, when you have not taken on the top dogs at light heavyweight, you cannot say that this man has been dominant through all those weight categories. The only weight category he's been dominant is the super middleweight division. And yes, I give him props. Yes, he's incredible. His achievements are fantastic. But if he goes to cruiserweight and he beats Makabu, yes, it's a great achievement. Like I said, 25 knockouts from 28 victories. This guy carries power. He's no joke. Nonetheless, you're not going to tell me he's the cruiserweight champion of the world. There are much bigger fish to fry at cruiserweight who, quite frankly, I don't believe he would have any chance against. Could you honestly see Canelo Alvarez competing with Lawrence Okolie? Okolie is far too big. He's very, very adept at tying guys up on the inside. I did that very detailed technical breakdown in the build-up to the Glavatsky fight where I was showing images. It was like a 30-minute video. It was a very long video where I was talking about how Lawrence Okolie goes about breaking down an opponent on the inside, how he ties them up, how he nullifies them and does damage while he's there. Well, at range, he's far too tall, surely. And now that he's with Shane McGuigan, that last fight against Glavatsky, he's shown that he can maintain range while actually fighting shorter, fighting out of a little bit of a bend and a crouch. Canelo wouldn't be able to beat Okolie. Then there's Maris Briedis, of course. I doubt he beats Maris Briedis. So, yes, it would be a fantastic achievement. It would be a cruiserweight title. But is ILUNGA MAKABU a better victory than Beterbiev at light heavyweight? Is he a better victory than Dmitry Bivol at light heavyweight? And so we as fans really need to ask ourselves, what is it we want to see here? Do we want to see a very good fighter in ILUNGA MAKABU who does carry power, who would make it a fun fight? There's no guarantee that Canelo beats him. I've seen Canelo have a little bit of a freeze on moments when he eats a big shot, a little bit of a pause. I've seen it on more than one occasion. I saw it happen on 1 or 2 occasions against Caleb Plant. I'm not saying he was rocked or that his legs stiffened, but there's a pause. There's a slight moment where he thinks, okay, let me just brace for this and then I'll go to work again. Well, Makabu hits a lot harder than Caleb Plant. So there's no doubt that Makabu would have the opportunity to knock him out. Ask Tony Bellew about his power. Ask Dmitry Kudryashov about his power, right? So I'm not trying to undermine this, but I'm simply explaining that there might be unfinished business at light heavyweight before we start hailing this guy as a super cruiserweight champion. Which brings us on to the question of why Makabu then, right? This is what I want you to analyze. Psychologically, why is Canelo Alvarez targeting Makabu and not one of the other cruiserweights? If he wants to be a historical cruiserweight king, then surely you have to go after some of the top cruiserweights, the very best, right? Now, your argument to that might be, but hold on a sec, Chris. Maybe he just wants a title at cruiserweight. He wants to be one of the top dogs at cruiserweight, which would be enough to further cement his legacy and catapult him into a new stratosphere in terms of legendary status. You don't necessarily need to beat Maris Briedis, the #1 guy in the division, or Lawrence Okolie, the #2 guy in the division. You don't need to do all that. You just need a big name, a title. Fine. But then are you going to apply that same logic to light heavyweight? Because, fair enough, that means he's not the top dude at light heavyweight either. The only place he can call himself the top dude is super middleweight. Now, I want you to think about that. What does it mean? Why Makabu? Because that's what you believe you can beat, right? Does that mean you don't believe you can beat Beterbiev yet? What's going to happen? Does he fight Makabu, let Beterbiev continue to get older, and then when he sees that he thinks he's washed, he goes after Beterbiev too, and then turns around and said, oh yeah, look, I could have beaten Beterbiev all along? Is that what's going to happen when he fights Golovkin for a 3rd time as well? He beats a 40-year-old Golovkin and everybody says, well, see, he proved it. He was better than him anyway. Come on, guys. Let's talk about the difference between reality, where he deserves a lot of props, a lot of credit for some fantastic achievements, and the narrative, which is not reflective of reality with Canelo Alvarez. Great fighter, but the narrative isn't always accurate. Let's be honest. What happens if he beats Makabu? Does he hope that, did the WBC do a favor and strip someone like Fury or something and eventually give a title shot to someone like Manuel Charr against some Christopher Lovejoy type character? And then Canelo Alvarez goes up and tries his luck against Manuel Charr. And then if he was to beat Manuel Charr, turns around and says, oh, look, I was a heavyweight titleist too. Come on, guys. We as fans have to demand the best fights in the sport. And the best fights in the sport, there are some fantastic ones still at super middleweight, by the way. There are guys that could make super middleweight that would give him a really good test. You've got Benavidez there. If he wants to go up, you've got someone like Gilberto Ramirez, who seems to be able to operate between the two weight categories. He'd be a real test. You've got Beterbiev at light heavyweight. You've got Dimitri Bivol at light heavyweight. So let me know what you think. Do you believe that Canelo Alvarez should be seeking to become the dominant light heavyweight before even looking at a guy like Makabu? And, you can work your way into that. You know what would be a terrific fight? He keeps talking about he wants to fight in the UK. Why don't you fight the winner of Anthony Yarde or Lyndon Arthur in the UK? If it is Anthony Yarde, that provides a lot of interest to me. I mean, Lyndon Arthur's a very good fighter, but Canelo Alvarez, I believe, has the style and the tools to be able to deal with Lyndon Arthur. Anthony Yarde becomes a more interesting affair because Anthony Yarde might not be anywhere near as technically gifted as Canelo Alvarez, but he's very athletic. He carries a lot of power. There are a lot of good reflexes there. And it makes, for a very interesting spectacle here in the UK. That might be an option he wants to go down. Or Callum Johnson, another very heavy-handed, aggressive, light heavyweight who has dropped to the likes of Beterbiev. Go down that route, right? So, I don't know. For me, this idea of jumping up to... by the way, I'm talking about going that route first before trying to conquer the light heavyweight division. I'm not saying, Callum Johnson or Anthony Yarde would somehow be a bigger achievement than ILUNGA MAKABU. That's not what I'm saying. I'm simply explaining, shouldn't he really seek now to build his legacy at light heavyweight rather than try and raid a division? He sees a champion he believes to be beatable, a weak champion, goes and quickly takes his title, then goes back down like he did with Kovalev. I hate to say it, but he learned a lot from that Floyd Mayweather fight, but not just in the ring, out of the ring too, to be honest with you. But let me know where you stand on this. He is without a doubt a great fighter. I'm not undermining his abilities or his achievements as a whole. I'm just not sure about the narrative and the way he's going around trying to do what he's trying to do. Let me know what you think and what your position is on this. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless.